First of all, thanks, Christosh, for your great motivation. Yes, God is good. Actually, He's more than good. God is great. Actually, I do not know how great God is. I don't give maybe Him enough credit, but He's the greatest. But yeah, thanks for the motivation. I'd like to share with all of you about this dark tetrad. About this dark tetrad of malignant narcissism, red flags, and apathetic people. Why am I doing this? It sounds so depressing, right? The psychopaths, the sociopaths, the darkness, how they control a person, follow them around, voyeurism, push them around to different places to live deliberately. It's all a setup. They think it's a game. They put it in their own little movie. You could write a whole book about it. Nobody is allowed to without permission. And I'm going to share this with someone who has been sharing about, that's what she does. I mean, it's kind of like, when I think about it, I step away from it, I come back in. I step away from it, come back in as I'm doing my housework or whatever I'm doing, because it's so oppressing to hear it. It's a challenge. At the same time, it enlightens us. It shows us. Then it even shows us more about what God talks about sowing and reaping. And how He steps in when we unleash His hands, when we unchain His hands, and then we decide we're not God's. That's what we do. We're releasing it to Him. And Chris, you're right. I have been doing this since I've been a little girl. I didn't have that choice. My brothers know. My brothers know. My one brother that's alive knows. My others are all passed on. Unfortunately, they're very precious to me. And it was really hard, everyone, to stay in contact with my brother in Cayman because of this voyeurism, because they were invading his messages with my messages, playing this game back and forth on me. And it made it very difficult for me to be part of his life near the end, and with my mom and with my sister. And that's what dark triad people do. Tetrad. Actually, she adds on with the sadism. With sadism, it's very orgasmic. It feels good to them. So I remember hearing about this exercise machine, and where you remember the old exercise machines that we'd lie back and you'd stretch and you'd fold it back up for your tummy. They use that for torture. Yeah. So and the psychopath and the dark triad person listening to this loves it. Okay. They love this. But for having empathy, honestly, I in this area, they don't have empathy. So they may, they'll do things like isolating one, controlling others, who can come in, who can come out and speak, scare tactics. I got pretty strong daughters. So you push them too far and you don't want to mess with them. I taught them my ways since I was a little girl. They've seen a lot, so I need them to recognize red flags. Now, these kind of people like to isolate you, so that means not have friends, family, and whatnot. But when you've recognized these patterns, it's kind of like a peaceful thing at the same time. But then what gets your fire going is because you know they're doing it, right? And they use money and scare tactics, and they do porn on you. They watch you in bed. They even will get off at... The more a peeping Tom looks in, the more violent they become. So it's not seeing a person naked, it's peeping on the person. So it's very excitable. But then what happens is they go in to start getting very vengeful. So it's no longer just a peeping Tom peeping in. That's where you hear about murders being done. So they will get an excited kind of euphoria inside them that isn't the same as ours. And again, you don't have to be naked. It can be just a lust. Then it can lead to torture and murder. Or it might put you at a torture area in your life just so they could get off on it and then release you a bit and then torture you and release you a bit. That is a sadist. So here I'm going to share a little bit with you. I know because I've experienced it, so I would like you to have a watch on this. It's sickening. It's rotten to the core. It is who the person is. It's a control tactic. So they scare. It's scare tactics, and they do setups. Well, we'll just do a movie, guys. We're just doing setups. We're going to do a domino effect. It's okay. No problem. You're going to get paid really good money for it. You know, you're going to get paid really well for it and stuff like that. Okay? You're going to come out really big in this. I mean, you know, or the person is going to end up with so much money that you're not going to have to worry about working anymore because that person we're doing it to is going to take care of it. So again, this is all tactics in the setups. So I'm going to, while I'm doing my housework, I like to share that video with you. Have a good day.
Calculating, often superficially very intelligent and charming, willing to make a relationship with someone and then sort of use them and for whatever they need them and then sort of abandon them, right? The researchers then expanded that theory a little further to something called the dark tetra. So they kept the psychopathy, the narcissism, and the Machiavellianism, and they added something called sadism to the mix. So the intentional infliction of harm on someone, and kind of it feels good to harm someone. So it's dark. It's dark. That's why it's called the dark tetrad. So when these traits hang together, we see, when we talk about malignant narcissism, it tends to be more of that, like really almost intentionally harmful, revenge-seeking, manipulative and cruel, and yet charming and all that stuff. There's a famous story of Dirty John, and it was an LA Times series. It was when podcasts were just beginning. Everyone talked, and it was basically the story of a woman, Deborah Newell, who she was in her 50s. She met a guy, charming, charismatic, handsome, everything she wanted to be, and she's totally into him. And red flags everywhere. Her kids didn't like him. Kids were adults. Her kids didn't like him, but still they move in together. Within 2 months, it was very clear something terrible about this guy, and manipulative, and awful, and dangerous. The whole story comes. So within 2 months, she was already having to live on the lam. She was having to move every 3 days. She knew how harmful he was, and then the whole story culminates in that he knew that some of her family members were naysaying him, so he was going to try to kill her daughter Tara, and Tara killed him. Tara in self-defense. But that guy, John Meehan, the man she was in a relationship with, was a perfect example of a dark tetrad. And so it was evil all the way down. And yet, charming, charismatic, attractive, she felt special, she felt seen. I mean, enough so that she obviously pulled him into her life. And the challenge with the whole story was there was a real tendency to want to depict Deborah as foolish. But really the story to me was, this is how, the manipulativeness, if you didn't know what this was, how easy it was. And back in 2017, that was only 6 years ago, we weren't talking about narcissism the way we are now. I think my first book had only just come out, but it still was sort of a small hoofbeat in this whole conversation. But that's probably one of the more classical examples of a dark tetrad person who we sort of heard about. And then since then there have been a lot others have come up in the media. Prisons are full of dark tetrad folks, but a lot of them are out and about. We know that dark triad people are successful business people. They can actually succeed quite brilliantly because they're willing to use people. They're very manipulative. They don't care. They'll make big, risky decisions because they're not afraid. So it's complicated, and it is dark. And I hope someday they expand that dark tetrad theory one step further with a dark pentagon, pentad, whatever you call it, and bring paranoia into the mix. Because people who are like that they're very suspicious. They think everyone's out to get them. They feel like there's a target on their back, and that chronic suspiciousness means they're very provocative and reactive. Like, what are you looking at me for? You better watch out. I know you got it in for me. And they'll just, and they'll kind of start going at people that way. So I do think paranoia is in that mix too. Yeah. So it's dark. This is. Some people get into relationships like this. Again, Dirty John was a great example of that. But there's, people will say, when I first met this person, they were charming, they were this, they were that. But the cracks on this will start showing pretty early. And these are relationships we often term as coercively controlled relationships, characterized by fear and menace and isolation and stealing of a person's freedoms. So we see this in domestically violent relationships all the time. Yeah.
Ooh, and so the four sides
tetrad,
then, tetrad must be like the hardest. What does that actually result to then? The person that has the most epic control?
It's a person who is menacing, isolating, the ultimate control. Absolutely the ultimate control. They have absolutely no care that they're harming somebody else. Even with that level of the dark tetrad, you're not seeing as much of the shame and the insecurity.
Oh. So is it psychopathy?
Psychopathy, yeah.
Do they have shame and empathy in them?
No. They can fake it though. I think the dangerous thing with psychopathy is that they know that people want you to be this sort of warm back and forth. Dirty John, he was very charming initially, really seemed like he was listening to her problems, and he cared about her. So they know how to put on a show. They are able to figure out what it is people want and give them that thing to draw them close. That's the Machiavellianism.
And then the sadianism, you
the
said?
sadism.
Yeah, the sadism. How does that result then, if you don't mind?
They will say terrible things to people unapologetically. They'll do hurtful things. They will hit them, harm them, steal from them. They'll also get off on it. Like they'll say something cruel to someone and watch that person get devastated and almost feel gratified by it. They will watch someone fail, their whole business fall apart or their relationship fall apart, and they'll be like, karma's bitch kind of thing. Like it's very dismissive of other people's pain, and one would argue that they may even want to be the one who's creating that pain for another person.
Would serial killers then kind of go under this?
Yeah, I would say a lot of serial killers probably are dark tetrad, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's so freaking fascinating. So now if, let's say, with everything we were speaking about, we really want to come full circle. And if you decide that you now actually want to leave this relationship, so you've identified all their tactics that they're trying to, put on you to potentially keep you in that relationship, you're identifying all the gaslighting, that you actually see all the signs. What are the tactics that then a narcissist is going to lean into even more so to actually trap you so that you can potentially change your mind? So I've heard you speak about, like, they're obviously going to do, in the past we've spoken about, like, smear campaigns and things like that. What have you seen be the thing that just when you think someone's got their foot out, they end up turning around and changing their mind?
Hoovering. There's a narcissistic person going back to love bombing square one. Baby, I was so wrong. I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm about to lose you. The best thing that ever happened. I'm going to get therapy. I am going to, you are worth fighting for, right? So they future fake. They say they're going to change. They say they see it all clearly. And what's so upsetting about that, it means that all along, they were hearing what their partner was asking for. They didn't do it, but they weaponize it and use it as a way to suck someone in. Because they're thinking, well, they hurt me. So they must mean that must mean that they register. No, they heard it as something they could weaponize. That's different. So they'll often hoover and really try to draw someone in that way. So that's a big one, and that often will lead people to do an about face, especially if there's stakes in the relationship. Kids, shared finances, a history, culture, all of that. Big one. The other thing that can keep people stuck is when, that's the sort of the hoovering part. The other part is the abuse part, where they start literally making this such a miserable experience. It's called post-separation abuse, but the person's too scared to leave. They may threaten them. They may hit them with so many legal, if it's a divorce, so much legal stuff that the person's like, I can't survive this. They'll make threats about custody. They'll make threats about money. They won't pay things they need to pay. The person may not have money for an attorney, and while someone else is saying it'll all work its way out, when you're in the middle of it, that working its way out might be 5, 6, 7 years down the road. It's the narcissistic person, like you said, smear campaign. They'll mobilize everyone else. They'll tell other people terrible things about you. What many people said at this phase is they said, I just wanted it to stop. And the one way I could have made it stop was if I just went back in and gave them what they wanted, and which was control back, which is they went back into the relationship. So it's just so, again, post-separation abuse, scary, frightening, unsettling, that to leave was just too much. And so they would go in almost to stop the pain.
What do you advise people in that situation?
I would say it depends on how severe it is. Like I said, the most extreme case is to work with a domestic violence program if you are able to get legal resources. And I know here in LA that there are organizations like Peace Over Violence where they have legal resources available. So if you contact them, they have people available to give legal guidance. I can't say that for all. I'm honored to be a part of Peace Over Violence's advisory board, and they've been around for a long time. So these things exist in different places, but sometimes areas that are more rural, and they may not have the same kinds of support. So, like I said, I can only speak to LA where something like that exists, but sometimes domestic violence programs can yield that. Countries like the UK, which are phenomenally ahead of the curve on understanding coercive control, there are a lot of programs in the UK where their domestic violence programs are accounting for coercive control. They often have great professional guidance and people, advocates, attorneys, things like that, who get it there and can guide people through that process. But like I said, it's spotty in terms of where people can get that. If you're lucky, LA, UK, you might be able to get it. Other regions, not so much. But you may need supports and information. If you're being hoovered back in, that's where therapy can become important. A safe sounding board with a therapist who gets what this looks like. As a therapist, Lisa, I can never say to someone, don't go back, don't go back. But I can really help them say, how are you feeling? And help the client sort of sound it out. And sometimes they come to their own conclusion, like, who am I kidding? And if they do go back in, having a good therapist say, okay, what are we going to learn from this? And walk them through it. So, but again, not everyone can always afford therapy, and I'm aware of that.
And sorry, if you mind me asking, is that because legally you can't tell someone to go back or not to go back?
Remember, even though you drive an electrified Toyota, it still needs regular service.
There's a very interesting series position that someone would be in, thinking about this, and you think, well, geez, because of this, people are going, you're acting really strange. You're acting really weird. Or, oh, stop, I'm tired of hearing it. Or, oh my gosh. Because of the position you're placed in from voyeurism and whatnot, and setups, and, oh, we're going to build your faith, and we're going to humble you, and I'm going to use you for my sex object, my concubine, or, just sickening stuff like that. And, become their little toy. And it's a fun control tactic for them. So they get to do what they want with you. If the song comes in, I got you, babe, it better be I got you, babe, in a healthy way. So if someone really cares for you, and you know them, and you get to know them more, they treat you with love and respect and comfort and protection. I'm not talking about protection in isolating you. Okay, that is harmful. I'm talking about a protection where they will not allow that to happen to you. Okay, and if they see this and they know what's going on, they will do everything they can, what they can do, or they would actually get in their vehicle and get their butt over and protect you. They would make sure that they wouldn't leave you astray. They wouldn't leave you in a position where they couldn't just put some few dollars in a gas tank and make sure that they got over there and it didn't happen anymore. Remember, it's if you can afford certain things, you can afford to put some gas in a gas tank. So you know this is going on. You know, a person that says, I got you, babe, would do that. They would put some gas in that gas tank and they'd be over there making sure that that is done. It is finished. You know? So, just something to think about. So the person got you, babe, in hindering, or I got you, babe, in protecting.
Mark our place, and in the sky, the lark still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below. Oh. Hungry for the wind? Or just hungry? Rippled and match ride.
Yeah, a few commercials.
What the?
So as a therapist, my role is not to give advice or guidance. My role is to work with the client to help them understand themselves so they are their own agent of change, right? The last thing I want anyone to...
They have this course I took in ministry about where you don't give them the answers, tell them what to do, but you give them information to open up their eyes to see the truth, giving them hope in a right direction, allowing them to do some homework, kind of, see what's going on. They have that course. I went through it, and also in I just haven't shared a lot what I've learned, but the thing is, the more knowledge, it's fun and it's healthy, and sometimes it's pretty gross to study it. It's like I really don't want to go here. It's too oppressing. It's too depressing to study it. But once it is. Can you imagine? That's why I've helped people out at church and other places, and I never charge them. Okay? Where some therapists charge. You could charge as much as you want, I guess, to a max or whatever. It's just that I had this attitude that if I got it for free, then I need to give it for free. So I did the work in it. I did do the work in it, in studying it. And, and then I think, well, maybe, whatever I do in my life donations is nice one day. But you got to be very careful, because that's why I couldn't become a Christian therapist and charge you by an hour. Because then I'm asking you to pay me for a word that's free. And, God says whatever you help people with, not to expose it, what the right hand did with the left hand. So that's where I had an issue with it. But, if you're not going to study, and you are stuck in a position like this woman does, she has to charge, because these people are not equipped. They don't have the answers. So they pay her to go and to get protected. And it would be worth it. So, there's a guideline. There's a guideline. you know, it's up to us. It's up to us and where we're at. Just like if because of sin, because of people choosing to do it their own way and doing harm, you know, who's going to pay the RCMP? Who's going to pay the FBI? Who's going to pay the CIA? Because I sure in the hell don't have that kind of funds. And if I did, where they would gaslight and play games on me, oh, you just don't know how much money you have. Oh, but we're going to keep that so you can't even get to use the washer and dryer. Oh, you just don't realize how much you have, a lot of money. You know, I've had that. I don't know how many times people have come to me and says, do you know that you're a millionaire? Yeah, we're all millionaires with God. No, I mean, do you realize how much money you really have? You have more money to pay every fund or every bill off, plus help other people in the right way. And so, you know, or else then they would take from me. So, you know, it's like a catch-22 or gaslighting or playing games. But if I did have that kind of money, it wouldn't be someone that would be holding back on me, you know. And if someone really, really cared for you, they would be there with you. And if he knows, or someone else knows his finances better, I mean, the best way to learn finances in the Bible, then do it that way. So you don't just throw your bills up in the air. Because the reason why we have money here in this world is because of sin. So now we have to pay. That's just the way it is for a rented service. And that's your tithing now because of the sin. But yeah, I hope you have a good listen with this.
Dudes feel like, I need my therapist. No, you've got the tools. When you walk out here, you came in here with a box with a few tools in it. We're filling it the rest of the way up. We're teaching you how to use them. And the goal for me is that you go. That you, at some point, would say, yeah, I'm good. I got this now. I get it. But if they feel like I've got it, what is she going to say? What guidance will she give? They're not making it from an autonomous place. I'm a sounding board. I'm a safe space. But I'm not an advice giver. I don't tell people what to do. Yeah.
Should friends then? Because and maybe I'm just projecting, but if I was in your head and you just see somebody who's clearly been in an abusive relationship, and you've heard all the stories, and then they talk about going back. Like, in my head, like, I'd want to scream, like, don't go back.
Remember, we're not talking about physical abuse. Like, let's...
Right, yes.
I'm lifting that out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's the problem. People in emotionally abusive relationships have been told, sometimes their whole lives, but certainly in this relationship, what to do. The last thing I want therapy is to be one more place where they're being given a command. So by getting to feeling, connecting to a sense of agency, and we use therapy as a place for a mental experiment. Like, let's play this out. Let's play out the scenario of you leaving. Because what will end up happening is, because you've got to remember this, Lisa, what people forget about leaving an emotionally abusive relationship is it can be dangerous. Post-separation abuse is real. The stalking, the menacing, the texting, the emailing, the smear campaigns, the guilting, the passive-aggressive, the on and on, like having a damn air tag put on your car, or a tracker put on your car, or stuff put on your front door, not knowing there's a camera here or there or that. It's bad. So, you know, any of us who are doing this work clinically, we already know, like, you got to get sweeping, you got to get an electronic sweep done of your house, got to get one done of your car. Make sure if you don't have an iPhone, if you don't have an Apple phone, make sure you find out if there's any trackers. Those discs are this big, the biggest quarter. So make sure we really have to make sure there's no, get their computers over to, like, Geek Squad to get them scanned out, make sure there's no malware. Like, it goes deep. Like, you really have to work with people, so it's terrifying. And some people say, I don't have the stomach for this. So it's not that simple. Are they up for it? Do they have resources? Do they have a safe place to go? Do they have money? And the answer for that for a lot of people is no.
Do you suggest in those situations, especially if it's if there is like the I could just only imagine how that would feel, that someone's like coming after you, really trying to put a smear campaign out. You know, you've built this reputation, you're a good person, and this other person who, you know, you've said in the past, and you've said multiple times even in this episode, is that they're very charismatic. Like, a lot of people do actually really gravitate towards narcissists, so you don't necessarily see all sides of them. In that situation, do you then suggest that people do things incognito? Like on the side, like kind of like slowly leave a partner? Like, is that...
That's a good question. So it becomes, you know, something we call in psychology successive approximations, right? You're not going to go from I'm in an emotionally abusive relationship to packing boxes just like that. And one thing I've often, you know, suggested to clients, again, we use therapy as a place to mentally play it out, right? And the second is we do small things. I'm like, whatever you can get documents-wise, I need you to start scanning this stuff. We need to get this on a thumb drive. We need to get that thumb drive out of the house. Because you're going to need this stuff, and if you can't get it, slowly get a couple of your grandmother's earrings. Things that aren't community property, things that clearly, again, you cannot take anything out of that house that is shared. If you're married, shared joint property. So, but a thing like you're thinking, okay, the last thing I want is to be locked out of this house, and I can't have my kids' baby shoes or something like that. Put that stuff away someplace carefully if you think you're going to need to be getting out of this. And again, check your devices for stuff too. I mean, with the cloud and all this and people on family accounts, your phone is as good as a tracking device. If you're on a family plan, I promise you that narcissistic person knows where you are all the time. So be careful. So if you go in for a legal consultation to an attorney, they don't see you pulling up to that office in Century City. Leave the phone behind. Give it to a friend, get a burner, do something so you can be in touch with people that day, but that phone isn't following you all over creation. But if it's a shared car, odds are it has a tracker on it too. So it's really about, it's about preparation, it's about being realistic, it's about tiny little steps. For some people, even thinking about the thought of leaving is a big deal. Because I have to tell you, the first time a person says to me, I need to get out of this, I'm like, checkmate, we've got this. Now, we get about 55 moves to that checkmate, but now I can see the game, right? And so, once they say it, it's not like, great, let's go. I'll say, okay, talk to me. How are you feeling? How are you feeling in your body? And they'll say, oh my God, I'm panicking. I'm saying, we're just talking about it here. So the mental experiment slowly. So they've now vocalized that there could be a future outside of this relationship. Then it's painstaking work, again, somatically connected to their own psychology, their feelings, their thoughts, the practicalities. Listen, Lisa, some people are practical. They're like, I am not sharing custody of these children. And they're like, at the stroke of midnight, when my youngest child turns 18, I'm filing those papers, and they do. And then literally, their kid's 18th birthday, they say to the attorney, pull the trigger, here we go.
And that's because they've done the steps of...
They've done all the other stuff. Yeah.
So actually, if you don't mind taking me through that, so you just said...
It depends on the situation. I mean, it depends on the situation. It's going to be different for everyone. You know, if it's marital situation, it gets a little more tricky. It's going to be different in every state, every province, every country. So there's no uniform kind of piece here. But it's really, I think, more than anything, thinking it through. What would this mean to you? In terms of the other practicalities, it could be if there are documents you know that you might need someday if you were to go, copies of passports, things like that, birth certificates, the little glitches that you're like, you do not want, because getting those little pieces of paper, should the two of you no longer live in the same house and it's a partner, could take forever. So little things like that, getting organized, having it all in one place, getting it on a thumb drive, because if they decide to throw your computer on the ground and smash it, that's going to be a problem. So getting it on a thumb drive, getting it out of there, those little kinds of things that can help you feel like, okay, if this really continues to get south, there's a path forward for me to kind of safely get out of this. It could, and like I said, what I don't want to veer too much into is sort of the domestic violence safety plan here, because that's a very different animal of go bags and safe places to go and cash, and that's a different conversation. So I'm really trying to say that people are in something that are saying this is becoming untenable, but I'm not ready to go yet. But should I be ready to go? What would I need to know? Those sorts of like little bits and pieces that mean that if the time comes and you're like, I'm out, and you're the one who's going to physically leave, some of that is possible, but I really think the deeper work is in therapy. For what does leaving mean? Some people will say, my parents were divorced, I vowed I'd never get divorced, and here I am. For some people, it would be their own abandonment wounds that are thinking like, well, what if the minute I leave, they meet someone new, or they're leaving because they feel like their partner is being sort of inappropriate or shady with someone new. Like, I don't want it to be so easy for him to go with the new person. It's complicated. So having a place to sort of unbraid some of that stuff, but I think mentally playing it out. Like, what would this look like for me? What am I scared of? How would I feel? How would I cope? Becomes it's sort of something a person plays out over and over again. Worst case models, best case models, all of that. And then it's going to land someplace in the middle, most likely.
Well, they're so powerful there to think about, because I'm such a tactical person when I'm feeling emotional or like I'm feeling helpless is the truth. To have something to go back to that can be almost like a guiding source. Like, I really love that breakdown that you just gave of how do I feel, what would a leaving look like, and then coming up with those tactical steps. Did you ever see the movie Sleeping with the Enemy? Oh God, I watched that as a kid and that just haunted me. And just thinking through how she really like had these massive plans behind his back, and then the fear of getting caught as you're having these plans. So how many of your clients, and what do you advise, like as they're processing this, they still haven't made a move yet, obviously you're not talking about physical abuse, but maybe I want to leave this relationship. How many of them fear talking to you about that honesty or talking to you about leaving because of the fear that maybe their partner finds out? And how many people stop vocalizing maybe to their friends or to the people around them that they're struggling in a relationship because they're so worried about that getting out?
Well, I think it's less so in therapy because they know that it's a confidential space and no one's going to, that no one will know about. But with friends and others, that's a very reasonable fear. And I think that people want to be careful about, even within their own world, especially if it's a relationship they've been in a long time. There's more intricate links of friendships, and your partner is friends with them, and all this other stuff. You want to be careful about understanding all of that. I think a lot of people are afraid that their plan could be found out. Again, we're not talking about severe domestic abuse, that kind of thing. We're really talking about people who are in emotionally abusive, classically narcissistically abusive situations. One fear people have is that, okay, they're going to figure out what I'm up to, and then they're going to start their hoovering process. They're going to be really nice, and that's just going to make this harder. I've had numerous clients say to me, I just want them to stay terrible for a really long time, so this will feel easier. Yeah.
And that's part of the fear of saying
the fear of maybe I'm wrong. The big fear people have is, like, especially if it's been a long time, maybe I'm wrong. Some people are afraid of dating, so they're saying,
hoovering, hoovering. Oh, that's a good one. You ever bought a Hoover? Oh, it sucks you up. Yeah, they were good vacuums when you first come out. And they go door to door and they suck you up. They suck you in to get sucked up. Yeah. That's what people do when their hearts aren't changed. But mind you, I was blessed with certain people in my life that knew what the heck there was going on. I ain't about the setups. Matters. We have to wait till this healing process is done till the next thing, and whatnot, or even it was very interesting, and I put a question mark and a flag about this person that wasn't a person but a robot. Imagine having that much money to actually have a robot partner, that only goes by direction, time, following the rules. But, but they can actually make them look like they have emotion and they have no soul. I actually have those robots, just so you know. And when you see these, I remember my daughter said, do you find this interesting? And that's as far as I'll go with this conversation. But when you start seeing stuff like that, that must have cost a lot of money. So, in all this, I hope we all learn from it. We all can learn from it. I'm waiting for the person to put gas in their vehicle and pop over. So again, it's something we can learn about this, because I had a lot of prowlers on media, and they knew it. And so that was their teaching lesson. So I've had that since I was a little girl. And you get the red flags, and then you go test their butt. And they go, hey, she wasn't supposed to test me. But they didn't expect it. You know, and so again, it plays against each other. And then a new tactic has to be brought up. So, you know, when especially, you know, when they're all teaching you about Jesus, they're all equipped in the areas of, oh, Jesus, 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 Jesus. I mean, they were going into the history and predictions with Jesus. I mean, we were talking about people who studied Jesus 30, 40 years more than we did. Okay? So, again, it's called, I don't want to give it all away, but damn, it's painful too. Yeah. So, again, they know all about psychopaths, sociopaths, the dark triad, sadist. They know, they watch you to see if they've almost killed you or not. Well, the thing is, I've dealt with this before. Okay. Something I never shared with them. So I've dealt with these kind of people that they were role-playing. And because people in my life place themselves in situations where I've seen it. So I could red flag it and test it. I just didn't relate all of it to the Bible. But I still was teaching my children to do the same. Just don't walk in wildfire. You know, when you start going, wonder why they want me to do that. I wonder why they want me to do that. Question, question, question. If someone's asking you to do something that feels funny in your stomach, then it's time to start testing it. You know? So that's what I did. But they didn't know I had already done this before. Actually, a few times. Because a family that got themselves in that situation. And I had to be part of it. So, you know, the isolation, the stalking, the sadism, the abuse, the, you know, attempted murder, the whole thing. Because I watched family members go through it. So when you're in that circle, it's a damn learned experience, and you better damn well learn from it. And you take it with you. And that's why God gives you the memories. You know, so, and you'll see who the narcissists are. And there are different kinds of narcissists. I just had to get the right names for everything. So, just like Joe Navarro, he was a people watcher since he was young. I had to be. I didn't know, but I had to be. So that's something that we all should be. So we observe, going, hey, you look the same as that person. Oh, geez, that picture was in that video, but that same picture was in that video. Wait a minute. That was the same video that you played like 20 times. They do that in the movies. Let's go for a ride. I'm taking you down Rodeo Drive. Not really going down Rodeo Drive. I'm going to take you to the same mailbox. You know? So all of this, these tactics, something that, you know, your family went through, or your friends went through, or somebody you met went through. So once you learn the Word of God, that you're going, wow, my eyes are just open up to, wow, now it's all changing. Now I'm getting it. I'm getting it more and more and more and more and more and more. Oh, yeah. I see. Well, I remembered your mom in that picture, in that video, and you were being a woman. I caught you. But I don't say that to them at the time. I just let them keep coming in to see. So I got to match it up. It's like a puzzle. You put in the, and trust me, it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. So, honestly, just don't do it. Don't do it. It's horrible. And when someone actually knows how much drugs to give you, knows how to harm you, do scare tactics, threaten, push people around, and do these setups, it's very, very dangerous. Then they have to have a doctor come in and watch you to make sure that you can handle it. Or they can watch you, the scientist. It's scary, awful tactics. So these it's unhealthy. You gotta watch out for this. It can be very dangerous. Again, if you've lived this kind of life, I hope that, like she's saying, she's not telling you what to do, but you have the options. In the Bible, it tells you what to do. On the narrow path, I'd get the hell out. That person's heart's not changed and they're leading you down that dark way. Observation. You run the other direction. Run! This what did Pritchard say to me? He says they come down that path and he says I keep my eyes fixed on God while I'm out there walking because these women flop it all over the place to get you to go in the dark way. Well, there's AIDS down that way and there's this down that way. Yeah, flee. No. Then I have, my other friend checking in on me. He knows the word. They all know. They all know. So... But we don't think of it that way. We think of, well, we're just going to go out there. We're going to go. I did. I always went for walks. But I observed. But when somebody does setups to mess with you, that gets creepy. That gets really, really creepy.
Okay, this is the devil I know. Do I really want to put myself out there? And I say, you know what? Someplace between being in this relationship and a new person is this whole beautiful world called you being on your own and figuring out.
That's why when I was talking to Keith, and I'm saying to him, like I'm watching him and making sure he's okay because of something that happened, and at the same time I'm listening. So when a person is looking out for you, they will make effort into getting there and being with you in a situation with love.
Who you are. And that, I think it's people, already going into the, how am I going to meet somebody? I'm like, that's not even on the radar right now. Where, if indeed you're going to leave this is about you getting back to who you really are subjectively. Who are you? And taking ownership of that. And then and only then. And I always, I put people, I tell 12 months. 12 months off if you've been to one of these relationships. Nothing. No kiss, no sex, no flirt, no dating app, no date, no nothing. I got the perfect person. They'll be there in 9 months. If they're not, then they weren't the perfect person. No.
That's what I was going to ask. How many people need to process? Like, why do they fear being alone? And that being with somebody who's toxic is actually better than being alone.
Well, I don't think people have always processed that fear of being alone. And it's complicated, right? There's sometimes people will say, oh my gosh, like when they're out of town, I'm so much happier. So you're alone, not a business trip, you're telling me you're happier. So there's small A alone and there's big A alone, right? Small A alone is they're out of town for 3 days and I get to have the dog in the bed with me. Big A alone is you're single and you don't have your person. That's what I want to understand the meaning of. Because you're saying you love when they're gone, but there's a bigger existential issue of what it means. And again, I think one thing I'm happy about in the world is we're no longer fetishizing people being in relationships like, ooh, your life's going to be so much better. I just read an interesting article in The Atlantic that said people who are married are generally happier, which I found fascinating. I would say probably people who are happily married are generally happier. We've got to create a world where people feel whole within themselves, and then and the enhancement in their life is their relationship. But I think that from a pretty early age, we saw people a bill of goods of love stories and pairing off and dyad. We are, though, now millennials and the generation of the Gen X's, we're now going to start seeing generations where probably the rate of non-marriage might be equal or higher than marriage. You know, so I think that that's, to me, strangely enough, I'm going to say that's promising. I don't think it's that young people and people coming into adulthood aren't going to get into relationships. They're going to be playing by a different set of rules and fluidity. But I think above all else, teaching people how to be comfortable with their own company. They may say, listen, I love being at a party. I love other, great. But to enjoy your solitude as much as you enjoy being with other people, but never feeling that you have to sell your soul to avoid being alone. That's the piece that we're trying to avoid. So helping people cultivate that sense of being alone and loving it.
If you enjoyed that, then make sure that you click right here, right now, so that you can enjoy the full episode.
Now, here's where you gotta be careful though, Lisa, right? Narcissistic people, for their lack of empathy, lack of self-awareness, lack of regard for others, have an uncanny ability
living your best life in a Schlegel village near you. Learn more at Schlegel Villages.
I guess it's all done. So I hope this helps you a little bit.
That's something different. Their chin comes down to protect their neck. That's something different.
Why is the chin coming down?
Well, that's your brain protecting your throat. You're trying to protect those arteries in there. You're trying to protect your throat. And so it comes down.
He is the FBI, and he gives signs of a comment. It's confident, narcissist, and psychopath that can fool us. And they're very good at it, by the way. Well, have a great day.